Something you say in the book that I found really interesting is you say that reincarnation does not always happen moving forward in linear time, because time, in a sense, is an illusion. It's how we experience this mass of events. Could you go into that a little bit? Because that is a really mind-bending idea.
It is, isn't it? And I've
Yeah.
become increasingly conscious of this partly through having these visions, for example, of states of being, which I don't necessarily remember happening in the way they're presented to me in vision, but I know have happened or could possibly happen, if that makes sense. So, just to start off with, I guess I should put out there the idea that time as we know it is an artifice. It's a construct being given to humanity specifically to give us meaning, in order to give us a logical beginning and end to things. Because if you think about it, if we never had a clear beginning or end to experiences in our lives, it would be pretty meaningless, and it wouldn't afford us as many opportunities to be able to modulate strong emotions.
Hmm.
It would almost be too easy, I think, in some senses. But because we are dealing with endless cycles of birth and death and rebirth, it helps to kind of give us the friction that we need for growth. And I think quantum physics is or understanding of quantum physics is beginning to move in the direction of this deep, abstract, esoteric philosophy, which is that there are infinite versions of ourselves all existing at the same time. And we can effectively switch to different versions of this reality by exercising the appropriate intention.
Hmm.
And we will sometimes be able to recall existences in different states from what we kind of recall in our current linear time model. So, for example, yeah, the one I've given you a couple of minutes ago, which is you might remember things in a particular way, but your conscious brain knows that the way in which matters played out at the time it was very different from what you can see. So you can see another possibility. And you know that at some level, that's because there was another version of you, of your lifetime, which you could have accessed or could have happened or was happening at the same time. The other thing is, and I know that's mind bending, and it definitely calls for a lot more reflection. And I speak for myself, and it's something that fascinates me endlessly. But I've started having more and more of these insights myself, and I'm realizing that this is true. And we're uncomfortable with it because it's just so abstract for us, but we will become increasingly conscious of this, I think.
Hmm.
Um, and I've also had some insights into future realities, which really blew my mind. That
Wow.
again, we can both individually and collectively as humanity, we can change our experiences of things. So if we set the right intentions, we might still have an experience in the same world that we know is super difficult with all the conflict and things that happening that are not fair and not just and awful for many human beings. By expressing our own intentions and framing our kind of mindset appropriately, we can have an experience in which we are not necessarily impacted in a way that is counter to our own development.
Hmm.
Within, of course, the general paradigm in which we exist, we've come in to experience certain things. What I mean by that is that we're given a blueprint. Our soul knows that we've come into this incarnation to experience X, Y, Z things
Hmm.
because that's part of our learning and development. And we have scope to influence, our experiences within that paradigm. And we don't necessarily have to buy into all of the terrible things that are going on. They might affect us. That might be our path, but we do have control in many respects or many instances. And we can, so it's important for people, and it's quite understandable, who find what's going on in the world really depressing and politics really depressing, and these human beings are letting us down. Well, the first thing is we shouldn't be putting our lives in the hands of someone else. We should always be taking responsibility for our own well-being and never assuming that any other human being has all the answers.
Hmm.
But secondly, to just try, if it's of any comfort, to focus on our own soul path and not to fixate on other things that are going on that we actually can't control
Hmm.
in the world. and
Hmm.
kind of distinct where the emotions start becoming, there's a surfeit of emotion in some way. For example, grief, for me, it's animal cruelty. It just tears me apart. I have to consciously reset my whole frame of reference, my whole intentional outlook to make sure I'm not sucked in by that negative emotion. Then it starts to hold me back.
Hmm. Yeah.